and welcome to the Metapod, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Sean, it's week 1 back in home. I don't know where I was going with that with the week thing, but it's just, it feels so nice to be back after being gone for so long, but it's also like bittersweet in a sense. How are you doing today?
I mean, I'm good. I don't want to get too deep into the bittersweet part. I mean, is it bittersweet because you're not at NAIC anymore?
Yeah, I mean that's why it's bittersweet. Like I had to leave the event, and I had to go back home, and I got to work after we're done recording this podcast episode. So it's a bittersweet feeling. I think anybody that goes to a major event or hangs out with a lot of friends, the first day that you have to go back to work just sucks.
Yeah, I feel that.
But anyways, Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jake. My weekend was not nearly as eventful as yours, but it was nice. I chilled. I went antiquing.
Oh, really?
I didn't.
Did you get any base set Charizards for like $3?
No. Man, oh,
any
now
antique
I feel
Pokemon
like
binders?
No, I did not. I did. We bought a gnome for the yard.
Oh,
because that's what people in the suburbs do, Jake. They buy gnomes, garden gnomes.
You have a yard?
Yeah, we have a house and a yard. It's not big, but it's like it's a little guy, and he sits there.
Yeah, he's just there. He's there.
His name
chilling,
is Dobby.
having fun.
It's great.
Dobby. Okay. Yeah. Dobby the gnome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, but yeah, speaking of you went to NAIC, which we will get into in a bit. I did get to watch some of the stream. I saw a few of the matches, including the finals match with Cyrus. And I also saw a match with a friend of mine, Jared Grimes, who was playing Chien Pao, which was cool.
Jared Grimes is the one of the creators of PokeStats. For anyone who doesn't know, yeah, I'm pretty one of the owners, creators.
What?
I'm trying to look it up real quick. Jared Grimes.
He made he's like a developer, and he made an app a few years ago.
Made PokeStats Live.
Okay, that
is the that's the official thing in the whatchamacallit, the Twitter bio.
This is me, like I'm calling him my friend Cleo. I don't even know that he made PokeStats, but the thing that I know is like he made an app a few years ago during the pandemic where people could create deck lists on their phone really easily, and he's a developer, so this makes sense. But yeah, and Jake, what did we discover when we were during the first version of the podcast about Cyrus? That
is often the abyss because we started over. So Cyrus Davis is the winner of the North American International Championships, which we'll get into her deck later and everything like that. But actually, over 3 years ago.
Yeah, just about 3 years
ago. Because it was summer. So just about 3 years ago, we actually interviewed Cyrus Davis on the Metapod podcast for the historians of the Metapod podcast, the lore people. It was all the way back in episode 8 of the podcast. So I think like over 140 episodes ago, or just about 140 episodes.
It's crazy. So we interviewed her, and at the time she was helping to organize the Atlas Championships, which again, for the historians out there, was the big pseudo world championships they did right after everything.
The pandemic shut down everything. There were no more official Pokemon events.
Yep. So Cyrus was helping to organize that, and if you want, a walk back to look at like what the world might have been like when we first started and when it was very different in the Pokemon scene, go listen to that episode with Cyrus. It's great.
I will say again, just try to look for episode 8. Cyrus has since changed their name from a different name, and so we have gone in like our stuff, the YouTube video. We've submitted the changes to the podcasting platforms and stuff to change the title and such to their new name, but in the episode we say their old name, and depending on how fast it loads for them, it may still have their old name or whatever. So just look for episode 8. That's the easiest way. It's a very, very good episode. It was very, very cool to talk about. And you can hear about the reveal of one of my least favorite sets of all time, which is Champion's Path.
Oh yeah, I wonder if
we talked about the reveal in that episode.
I wonder if it aged well. Like, I wonder if our reveal is like, oh, it's amazing, and then it was just like, oh, it's actually trash. So
I don't know, but it'll be there. But anyways, aside from that, let's get into the regular scheduled podcast stuff. First, with the 5-star review. Now, this isn't necessarily a 5-star review. This is more of a very nice YouTube comment that was left after we released last week's episode, right before NAIC. And Tron Dragon 44. This is how you know somebody listened to the whole podcast. So shout outs to you, Tron, because I only said this at the end of the podcast that I was playing Hisuian Gudra V-Star for NAIC. And Tron says, I knew there was a reason I liked Jake. Always happy to see another Lost Goo player. We'll have to try to find your list afterwards. Good luck with the goo. For the YouTube exclusive people, I will be posting the list soon. I don't know exactly when, but within the next couple days, probably after this podcast episode releases, you'll be able to see it. I'll make it in the community section of YouTube. I'll make a community post over there so you can see that list. And I'll also be posting it on our Twitter, MetapodTCG. Although I officially went 1-3-2 drop. So I don't know if you really want the list, but if you want the list,
spoilers, Jake.
It is fun. I mean, I like Gudra. I just think, and we'll talk about it. I mean, I guess I could talk about it now because we're not really going to talk about Gudra in the evaluation.
I want to talk about your NAIC run when we talk about NAIC.
No, we don't need to talk about the NAIC run that I had. Long story short, Gudra I think was much better previous to Paldea Evolved. It's just, I mean, I used Gudra like one game in the best of 3 series. So I just primarily played a Lost Box deck. That was pretty much it.
Lost Box.
Yeah, I just played Lost Box without the Dragonite and Raikou and stuff. So that's how my NAIC run left, but you're more than welcome to take my list if you would like. But Sean, that's enough of that talk and whatnot. Along with, the events and stuff like that with NAIC, this is a reminder that they did give out a free full art Iono code over in the stream for the North American International Championships. If you watched that, I think, is it just on Twitch or was it also streamed on YouTube?
It was also streamed on YouTube. That's where I watched it.
Yeah, so, I mean, either one that you watched in whatever platform you prefer, I think you'll be able to see this code. But if you do want it, it is NAIC 23. What's it? It is an absurd code compared to the other codes that they've had in the past. I will leave it in the show notes. I'll leave it in the YouTube description so then you can see it, copy paste it. But again, it's NAIC 23. What's it?
Yep. The W is everything up until the first W in who is capitalized. And everything after that is lowercase. If that matters, I actually don't know if it matters.
I don't know if it matters either. I haven't redeemed mine. You have until July 10th to redeem it, and only 100,000 copies will be available. But I think in the past when they've done these, I have done it like a couple days after NAIC, and it has still worked. So I think you're probably fine if you do it after you listen to this podcast episode. But not only that, Sean,
I will say though, it's not the full art Iono that's like the best version.
No, it's not the SAR, the special illustration rare or whatever, the super money expensive one. It is the regular full art, but personally I like the regular full art better, so it works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, fun fact. But you can get this, but you could also get more. I want to mention this, Sean, you didn't put it in the notes. But Twitch actually held Twitch drops during this stream. I don't know if it lasted, but my partner who's listening to the watching the stream and stuff, because now they're into Pokemon cards too, because of me collateral damage. But they were saying how Twitch drops was active during the Twitch stream. I don't know if it was also for YouTube. I can't confirm that. But this was, I believe, the first time that they've ever had Twitch drops on a Pokemon TCG live stream on Twitch. And with the Twitch drops as well, if you're not familiar with Twitch drops, it's like if you watch a certain amount of time, you get like a prize, and then you connect your account in Twitch to whatever it is. And so this instance, they were actually using Twitch drops for Paldea Evolved online packs. I don't know if you just got one. I don't know if you got multiple, but that was just a cool little thing that I wanted to note that they did, because I would hope that they do that every single stream.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, I wonder if it makes sense for NAIC, because I know they kind of pulled out a lot of stops for this one. Like, obviously, they did the code for the Iono. There's another sweepstakes we'll talk about in a second. Yeah, so my guess is they'll probably do something similar for Worlds, though. That also just makes sense, right? And yeah, that's really awesome, though. They did not do anything like that on YouTube, because I believe on YouTube they actually turn the comments off entirely.
Okay.
So, like, there's not the same functionality, but that's awesome.
I know that there are drops on YouTube, because I know for like the Overwatch League, I know I get token drops by watching this stuff on YouTube, because it's exclusive to YouTube. So I don't know if the drops worked on YouTube for the packs, and I don't know if they really worked at all, because I think I heard someone say something like that they were having trouble with the drops distributing it. So who knows? But hopefully that's something that they work on, they improve, and they continue doing in the future. Because I think that's just another reason to watch. But anyway, Sean, what is this sweepstakes that you're talking about? Because I actually do not know what this is.
Yeah, so they also announced at the end of last week, before NAIC started, a sweepstakes where the Pokemon Company is going to be giving away one booster box of every set of Sword and Shield to 3 different winners. And it is a true sweepstakes, meaning you have to you enter and it's a random drawing. There's also going to be 50 runner-ups that will receive 1 random box of Sword and Shield. Any of the details, you can certainly go look it up, but you have to be 13 and you have to live in a few different specific areas, the US and Canada, except for Quebec, which is interesting. The UK, Ireland, New Zealand, but then also Peru, Argentina, and Mexico, which I'm like, interesting. 3 non-English speaking countries alongside the main ones, but not Australia. New Zealand, but not Australia. It's very strange, but that goes on until July 10th. It's the link to that is on PokeBeach on the article there, so if you can go check that out.
I just signed myself up.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's free.
It took literally a minute.
Exactly. You give them your where you live, region-wise, your email and your birthday, just so they can confirm those things. And hey, you may get an email in the future saying you're going to get 12 boxes of Pokemon cards that you can either open up or make a nice little display of the whole Sword and Shield era, which is cool.
And again, this is the first time that TPCI has held such a contest, and you can enter from now until July 10th. So about a week away now, a little less than a week away. So just go do it right now, before you forget. Very, very cool. I mean, it's completely free. You'll probably start getting newsletters and stuff. I mean, it may be one of those things where Pokemon starts sending you newsletters for the card game. But honestly, I mean, they put online codes in the newsletters in the past. So it may not be such a bad thing to do, Sean.
I mean, I will say it's not the worst spam to get is spam from Pokemon. So,
Sean...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to take it?
I mean, I was just going to say the last piece of news before we get into NAIC is the documentary series.
Yeah. This is this is the documentary series that we talked about last week, The Road to Worlds. I was wondering, I think I said I was wondering if they would like release it once a week or whatever, like leading up to Worlds. But they just did 4 episodes, 4 days in a row on the official YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Sean, because this title says originally planned for Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it briefly, but remember how last year they did that casting call and everything? And at the time, there was speculation that there was like, oh, are they trying to do something for Netflix? Apparently, this and maybe the other series, the How Do You Play, that lives on the Pokemon website, both may have been shopped to Netflix as a series. Like, I think of the Road to Worlds as kind of like, if I were to be pitching that to Netflix, it's not dissimilar from Drive to Survive, right? Like following.
I don't
a
know that
niche-
show.
So Drive to Survive is the F1 documentary series that's on Netflix. 4 seasons, super popular. But after that, there's been a couple of other documentary series that have also been released on Netflix. There's called Breakpoint, which talks about tennis. There's one that I watched called, it's about the Tour de France. I can't remember the name of the series, but it was actually filmed for French Netflix, and they released it with, dubs and subs in the US. So this was kind of, in my mind, it's kind of a similar take on that. I think the biggest reason for me maybe it wouldn't have gotten picked up is that it does shill pretty hard for Pokemon from the perspective of like a Netflix, right? It's very like, it's a little too
It's
friendly.
really niche. Yeah.
Yeah, it's both niche and it's also like produced by the Pokemon company, so it doesn't have this outsider's perspective. It's very insider perspective, insider, sensibilities, if you will. Like they're not going to show too many of the negative things. They're not going to show, any of that. But I did watch the whole series. Have you watched any of it, Jake?
I have not because I was busy, at NAIC and working and
fair.
stuff. So I didn't get to watch it. I do plan on watching it because I've actually heard really, really good things about it. And I think that they like played, I don't know if they played all the episodes, but they at least played one, I'm pretty sure, with Isaiah Bradner, another former guest of the Metapod podcast. There was an episode about him, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole series followed the same crew of like players. There's like sort of two groups. There's Isaiah's testing group. I say Isaiah. but
Okay.
It's like Isaiah and Sam Chen and John Ang and Reagan Retzloff, right? So they had like a whole testing group with Justin Macari and others. So they followed them throughout like maybe like a 3 or 4 month period at a few major events. And then they also followed a seniors division player from Germany as well, sort of separately. Yeah, and that was the series. So all 4 episodes feature those same players.
Interesting. So, I mean, they were playing it at NAIC and obviously with like audio, and I was doing all these other things. I didn't really watch it, but that was kind of nice that they played it over there, and I'm glad that they're at least like easily accessible,
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're like 20 to 25 minutes per, so very much in that Netflix territory. I'll be interested to see if they remake them for this year, or if this was like we did a thing, it was cool. Because I think that's one of the benefits of the Drive to Survive series is that you follow a group, you get to know them, but then you follow them again the next year, right? And so the whole point is that like over the course of a couple of seasons of the TV show, you really get to know some of the different personalities. You can introduce new ones, whatever, but like but I don't know. I mean, look, if this is as far as it ever goes, it was pretty impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like it's tough because this game is ever changing and ever evolving.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I mean, I'm sure Formula One evolves and changes in its own aspects, but like, it's not as much of a change. Like, we only see Arceus V-Star for an X amount of period of time, whereas you'll see cars racing all the time. Or maybe is that not comparable in a sense? It may be like apples to oranges.
I mean, it's a little apples to oranges because I will say that in F1, you at least have the constants that, like, for the most part, it's the same teams every year. and the
Mm-hmm.
drivers may change. Like there might be 4 or 5 different drivers, but that's about it. Of like the
Mm-hmm.
20 drivers or whatever, maximum four of them are probably changing in a year. Whereas in Pokemon, like, any player can do good, can do poorly. There's hundreds of players, honestly, that are world class that could do well at any given event. Like, the top ones, but outside of that, there's still a lot of really good players, right? Like, so it's, still cool series. Definitely check it out.
I will say with the talking about Netflix and stuff and shows on Netflix, Pokemon Concierge, I don't, what is that word?
Concierge.
Concierge was announced over at Anime Expo. It's a stop motion little Pokemon series that is being partnered with Netflix, and there was a teaser that was shown as well. So no release date has been announced for that yet, but that's a little cool something. Pokemon will get a show on Netflix, so I wonder if they like pitched a couple different ideas to them and Netflix was like, we'll pick the best one or the one that we like the best.
Yeah.
And just happened to choose that one.
Maybe, yeah. This was an interesting one. This one I think is probably being produced in Japan, is my guess.
Mhm.
So,
I
but
think
yeah,
so too.
I mean, it's cool to see that Pokemon, like, they are this massive IP, and obviously Pokemon has the TV show and they make movies, so it's not like they don't make things like this sometimes, but it is cool to see them branching out with the IP in like different ways. Yeah, so that's about it though for this piece of news. Are you
Mhm.
ready to get into NAIC, Jake?
I am so ready to get into NAIC and relive the fun that I had, truthfully.
Yes. So
So,
tell us your story before we say the story of the event. I want to hear
mhm.
your story, Jake. What was it like for you?
Okay, so I went in and I bought a competitor's pass and competitor's badge and things like that and competed. And I didn't go into there being like, oh, I'm going to make day 2. I'm going to win, NAIC 2023. I went in being like, you know what? This is one of the only events throughout the year that I can like actually go to because of work and stuff. I haven't really played a ton because live has been something. It's definitely been something, but also just because I don't have time to play. There's no big locals around here within like 45 minutes. So I went in and I was like, I just want to win one game. That's not a buy. I want to win one game, and I did that round 1. I played Lost Box Gudra. Again, like I said earlier, I don't think it was like a great call. Just play like a regular Lost Box deck. I do think though that there were cards like I played a Baby Zamazenta in there. I think that was a great call. I think that Lost Box builds could play the Baby Zamazenta because the Baby Zamazenta does awesome hitting 220. And then also for weakness in some Gardevoir and Chin Pao decks. Especially if you're like me and you're at the bottom tables, you might see a lot of, Chin Pao. And you probably also saw a lot of Gardevoir because I think it was like 25% of day 1, which is crazy. But so it was a ton of fun. I mean, I just kept getting better and better as each round went on. When I faced Lost Box the second time, I was a little bit better, even though like I didn't win, obviously. Gardevoir, same thing. I just approached the matchup way better. But I feel like, I mean, I expected, day 2 and day 3 to hang out with friends, and I did just that. I had it was crazy because I went in 2019 and I went, as a spectator, literally just going and hanging out with friends and stuff. But at the time, like I just knew content creators.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew as like someone who just started making content, whereas this year was way different because I'm way more active in the Pokemon TCG Twitter community. I have many mutuals from there. We've made the podcast for 3 years now.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people that have listened to that, and it was a completely different experience, like going and being with friends. And so that's why I recommend, if you this is an evaluation that I had. If you go to NAIC or regional or worlds or something like that, because not everyone is, maybe knows as many people as we do. Probably your average listener just knows maybe they're locals or things like that, or content creators. Like I had mentioned, I did in 2019. Make sure that you go and meet up as many people as possible and hang out with other people. If you're in the Tricky Gym Discord server, right? I know that was a big one. I hung out with a lot of people that were in that server and knew each other from that server. Maybe I never met in real life, but they all came together at that event because it's for some of them, living in Akron or Ohio surrounding area, it was easy to get to that event. So that's what I really recommend, because I enjoyed both times, but this one just meant way more, even though I went 1-3-2 drop. But one of the things that I also realized is I love playing other formats, Sean.
Yeah.
So I went 1-3-2 drop in the event.
In standard.
Guess what? Yeah, in standard, in the main event. I played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I played 11 games in other formats. Guess what my record was?
7-4.
I played 11 rounds. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 11. So I went 8, 2, and 1 in other formats that I played. And this wasn't, it's not like just the 4-person pre-release build and battle pod. The first alternate format that I played in GLC. I played in the largest side event GLC ever, Sean. It was over 300 people that played in this best of 1 3-round tournament. Insane, because that's bigger than Australian regionals.
Yeah.
So I played in that one. I played I went 2-1.
Okay. Nice.
But it was like 2-1 with an asterisk, and I'll explain. So I played water with the special energies, geared towards special energy water with reversal, splash, gift, because I was playing the Wailord that hits for 240 when you have a special energy attached to it. Big old Wailord. So I went 2-1 with that with an asterisk, because round 1 I played against electric, right? And just because it was a weakness, matchup, that doesn't mean the asterisk. The asterisk is I went first because my opponent won the coin flip in GLC, Gym Leader Challenge format. If you do not know, it's a singleton, single type format. So ideally you want to go second to use a supporter and, use an attack. I lost the coin flip, so I had to go first. I promoted Snom, right, as my active, as my only Pokemon on the field. I drew my card. I attached to Snom. I said pass. Couldn't get any other basics out. And so what they did, they had Voltorb in the active. They attached an air balloon to it. They put down Thunderous Assault Zapdos. Sean, do you remember that card?
Is that the one where it comes from the bench and it's like 1 energy and it does 120?
Yep, they attached an energy, moved it up to the active, and so because of that, they were able to do 80 damage and knock out my little Snom. So I lost, but then we played a fun game, because that game was literally 2 turns, and we had 28 minutes left in the round. We played a fun round, and I won. It was a full game, and I won. So it's like, it's 2-1 with an asterisk, because I truly feel like my deck was better.
But Pokemon be like that sometimes.
Yeah, Pokemon's just like that sometimes. But anyways, round 2 I played against Dragon. Round 3 I played against Dark. Won both of those. And so got 200 tickets from that, because it was a $10 event, and so they were giving out double tickets for that. And so I'll get into more of the prizes later with my thoughts on like how that whole thing, side events, were going. Oh my gosh, it was crazy though. Because in the Gym Leader Challenge format, so Gym Leader Challenge format, very friendly, made by Andrew Mahone and Tricky Gym, popularized. by them. And so in the past, if you've gone to their events, online events, or I'm sorry, not online events, the in-person events when they were holding the 1Ks, especially, or their local nights, I believe this also applies. You're allowed to have Japanese cards, right? You're allowed to have other versions of cards because some cards are just really hard to get, or maybe you want to bling out your deck, right? With a, let's say, full art Hapu that was only released in Tag All-Stars in Japanese, and not in English. So they usually do that, and people like to play with the secret rare Japanese energies as well. Very, very pretty. But it was interesting because and you also can use like whatever sleeves you want, as long as they're the same sleeves, because it's just a fun format. In this, they didn't tell anybody beforehand, because I had no idea. But after when round 1 started, they made an announcement and said that there were no Japanese cards allowed. Only TPCI cards were allowed. Same language allowed. And you could not have the custom sleeve. So like the Pokemon rule, right? If you enter an official Pokemon TCG event, it has to be single color sleeves and not see-through. So like you couldn't have, or like if you had to have official like Pokemon sleeves, like I think you can use the ETB sleeves, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, your point was that like it's weird that they just decided to have different rules than the typical GLC format at the last second.
Without telling anybody, until the event had started. So there were a lot of judge proxies. I think there was one guy popular in the Tricky Gym community who like literally had every single card in his deck proxied with an energy and just written whatever it was on it, because the judge came around and just proxied his entire deck because it was like all Japanese cards. But then after round 2, they reinstated Japanese cards proxies and
I'm sure
stuff
they
like that.
realized
And
how absurd.
I think, this is just the rumor mill because I'm not in the Discord. They let Andrew Mahone know. Yeah. And he called up some people, and I saw some TPCI people that are pretty notable people in the community go up to the table and talk after round 1, because my round 1 wasn't very long. And then they reversed it. So I don't know, but it was, man, that was the first part of the,
I was going to say kudos to them for being willing to be like, oh, we're going to walk this one back.
It just seems so silly to me to not allow it in an unofficial format, but whatever. I don't make the rules. I don't know how it has to go. I don't know anything about the judges and the staffing and stuff like that. I don't know how it has to go, whatever, what it takes to run side events, things like that. But anyways, so I went 2-1 in that, got a bunch of tickets, very excited about that. Then I played in my first cube over the weekend, my first cube draft. So if you do not know, a cube draft is basically like there's a pool of cards, and so everybody gets a set stack of certain cards potentially. Well, in this one we got some cards. So we got like 20 cards.
Okay.
That were set. Well, you didn't have to play it, but you got these as part of your draft, as they say. And then, as you're saying, Sean, the rest of the pool of cards gets like randomized in packs, and then it's passed around, and you have a pack, you pick a card from it, you pass your pack on to the next person, you grab it from the person to your other side, pick a card, switch it. And so we played a Zoroark cube, Zoroark GX. So it was a cube. The guaranteed cards were like a 4/4 line of Zoroark, 4 double colorless, 4 Puzzle of Time, 4 Versus Seeker.
4 Puzzle of Time. Isn't that card banned? Didn't that card get banned in like normal formats?
It might be banned and expanded.
No,
but
that's what I'm
standard,
saying. That's wild though. That's what I'm saying. It's cool.
But the cube was built around every single partner and stuff, all the popular cards that Zoroark GX had. So throughout its tenure, so there was Trashalanche, there was Macargo, there was there was Lycanroc, there was Gardevoir, all these partners, potential partners for control, even like a Rangaru's in there. And so it was really, really cool as someone who has never drafted before in any card game, who's been around long enough to know Zoroark and know Zoroark's partners and stuff like that, to be able to draft for the first time. Because like, I'm like, okay, Zoroark, and after I get like one or two cards, the first couple cards, especially when it's Pokemon, like Lycanroc, Bloodthirsty Eyes Lycanroc, I'm like, okay, I kind of know how I want to build my deck and stuff like that. And so then I know kind of what I'm going for. So it was really, really cool for a first time player. I tweeted it, over on my personal Twitter. I played a Zoroark Lycanroc because I felt like in a format with Zoroarks everywhere, I feel like a fighting type Pokemon was a really good idea, hitting for weakness. So
I think that was a smart call.
I mean, it was, because I went undefeated. I went a perfect 3-0 in the event. Filthy Busted Broken deck. Friend Ball is the best card in that deck. Sean, do you remember what Friend Ball does?
Oh, yeah, I remember. It was it searches for a Pokemon of the same type as one that you have on the field from your deck or something?
No. It's on your opponent's side of the field.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's literally broken in Zoroark mirrors. Because it's an extra way to search for your Zoroark, and maybe it can find, a Tapu Lele. Maybe it can find
Dedenne.
Just anything that your opponent may have, because I mean there were multiple copies. I think there was like 8 Guzmas in the field. And there were like, I think there was like 5 or 6 Lycanroc GXs. So there was a good shot that you'd be able to find something to be able to utilize, but most of the time you're just using Zoroark. But the first round I played against, first and second round, because we decided to do best 2 out of 3. Zoroark, Macargo, Gardevoir, 1-1, won pretty handily, and then round 3 we only opted to play 1. It was against like a Luke Metal Zoroark GX control. There was Seismitoad in there. There was Jetsis in there. Jetsis, Sean, insane card. I understand why it got banned. It just it was built entirely around control, and I almost lost to it. I ran out of energy, but my opponent, who played it really well, just did not utilize their resources enough. Didn't put up the resource management or Rangaroo, and deck themselves out.
No.
Unfortunate, but I went undefeated in the Zoroark Cube. First ever Cube, undefeated in Cube, so best Cube player ever. And then what was arguably the coolest different format that I played in, I actually entered into Riley Wren's 2010 Worlds format. Sean, have you ever played in 2010 Worlds format?
No.
This is Pokemon SPs. This is level X's. This is Diamond and Pearl era. I never played this format before. I couldn't even tell you like what cards were in this format before this event. And I was blessed to be able to borrow a deck from someone, because I don't own any of these cards. Edge TCG Edward, a friend of mine, we had met up, and we were originally going to go have lunch, but then we met up over there at the event. And then he was like, hey, I have a couple 2010 decks. Do you want to play in it? And I was like, sure. And he let me borrow a deck. I tweeted this one out as well. I played Gyarados, which Gyarados was 130 HP Pokemon, and it had an attack that was free. Didn't cost any energies. That was 30 times, and it was 30 times the amount of Magikarp in your discard pile. So that was the whole
up to 120.
Well, no, you can only do up to 90.
Because one of the Magikarp is under your character.
Base. Yeah, because there was no Ditto in the format or anything like that, or in the deck at least. So you had to do that. But what was really cool is it played Broken Time Space. Sean, do you know what broken time space as a stadium is?
No.
Broken time space is a stadium where you can skip the evolution rule, skip the evolution turn rule. So what you could do is you could have one Gyarados on the field if you have a broken time space in play. The Gyarados gets knocked out, right? Sent to the discard pile. You have 4 Magikarp in the discard pile now and 1 Gyarados, let's hypothetically say. You've got Gyarados in your hand, and you have a way to get a Magikarp out of the discard pile and onto the bench. What you could do is you could use that item card or whatever to grab the Magikarp from the discard pile, put it on the bench, immediately evolve into Gyarados, your very next thing, and then attack with it again. So insanely cool deck. I thought it was so much fun being able to do that. And it was honestly like one of the better decks for me to play, because Edge, he had a couple different options for me, but this one was like the most easiest to understand. There were a lot of cards that were there was like Zinnia's Resolve in there, or an iteration of Zinnia's Resolve. There was Professor Elm's Lecture or Bridget. It's called Poke Collector. But that's some good comparisons. Those were in the deck. There was also this insane card, Sean. Think about, okay, so the 2010, I love talking about this because I think this is so cool. In the 2010 format, Sean, this is how a game starts. You know, you match up with your opponent, you sit down, do not coin flip yet. You actually set up your board, so you put an active Pokemon down and you put 6 prizes out, and then you coin flip. And then you coin flip. You coin flip after you set up your deck. But in the coin flip, so my opponent calls heads or tails. Let's say, Sean, you're my opponent. You call tails. The coin hits heads, right? In today's format, I would decide whether I want to go first or second. But that's not the case in 2010. Whoever wins the coin flip just simply goes first.
Yeah, it's the same in the old WotC era.
Yeah.
The player, if you win, you just go first. That's it.
What's even crazier though is there's a card called Sableye. Sableye is like the ideal starter in 2010 for a lot of decks. Not every single deck, but a lot of decks. Because it has this, I think it's Pokebody, because it's not necessarily abilities
it's like pre-ability
in this era.
ability.
Yeah. But it's kind of like an ability. Anyways, it has this Pokebody that says, if you start Sableye as your active Pokemon, disregard the coin flip and go first.
What?
And if both players play Sableye and start Sableye, use the coin flip to decide who goes first. It is one of the wacky, like we talk about wacky cards on here, and we love Aerodactyl V-Star. That Sableye is insane. It is so weird. Cause like you could do the coin flip and like you could be really excited, like, yes, I get to go first. And then your opponent just flips over Sableye and it's like, well, I guess you have to go first now.
Yeah.
And it's not like an option thing either. It's a guarantee. And in this format as well, you can attach an energy going first. You can attack going first. And I'll get into that more in a second. But you can't play any trainer cards going first. You can't play stadiums. You can't play item cards. You can't play supporters. No trainer cards. But this Sableye had an attack for free. Didn't cost anything. I think it's called like Impersonate, if memory serves correctly. What it does is you look in your deck, you grab a supporter, and you put it in your discard pile. The supporter that you put in your discard pile, you use that effect. So you can, going first, you can't play any trainer cards, but if you start Sableye, you can force yourself to go first, attack for free, and use a supporter essentially for the first turn of the game to end your turn.
It's I don't even know if that's broken, but it feels broken from the perspective of today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so crazy. Man, this podcast is going to be long because I'm just going to be talking about this format, but it was so cool. I'll go over my matchups kind of quickly because because most people probably, I don't even really know. The first round, I actually played against the guy who let me borrow the decks. He whooped me. He was playing like a Lucario, Garchomp, level X, Luxray level X. He beat me pretty handedly. Round 2, I faced a mirror match that was a little bit different. It was a Gyarados deck. I won. That was actually a really, really cool mirror match. I had a lot of fun with that. Arceus, I played against round 3, won. It was a really cool Arceus because it was an Arceus that had like 10 different every single type of Arceus that was in the game. There was normal, there was an electric Arceus, there was a dark Arceus, there was a fire. So cool. I won against that. Round 4, I had a no-show. I guess the guy just wanted to watch the event and forgot to come back. But because I won, I was able to ID into top 8. And that was really cool for not knowing any of the cards until 10 minutes before the event. I ID'd into top 8. And then because of the timing of the event, we actually didn't play out top 8. We just split top 8 winnings because, like, my buddy who let me borrow the deck, his flight had to leave like 15 minutes before top 8 would have started. Yeah. And I was borrowing his deck, so I would either have to mail it to him after the event or he would just take it and I'd have to pretty much concede. So they just decided out of fairness to just split top 8. And so I got 12 packs out of it of Scarlet and Violet. And then also with the prizes, they were doing a thing. So I mentioned I got those 200 tickets from GLC. They were giving away a lot of things. And man, if I have any recommendation to TPCI or any event organizers, staff the side event or staff the prize table way bigger if you can with volunteers and stuff, because the line was insane. If you were there, it was so long. It was so crazy. It was so crazy that they had a separate line for people who just wanted to exchange their tickets for booster packs, like just pure booster packs. And so it was actually 10 tickets for a Scarlet and Violet booster pack. So I got 20 booster packs of Scarlet and Violet on top of the 12.
So you basically got a booster box
from the event. I basically got a booster box and only paid $10 for it. Because the amazing. GLC entry was $10. So it was really, really cool. And there was a lot of great stuff. Obviously, scalping was a problem. I did get the Pokemon NAIC exclusive deck box. It's a double deck box in here. So very, very cool. It's magnetized. I did get that, but I know there was a problem with like that and the playmat and the backpack that were scalped to all heck. And posted on Facebook. So I don't really know how to combat that as, you know, an organizer, but please, organizers, for any events in the future that you have, you know what they also did at NAIC in the prize section, which is why I think the lines got so long as well for a portion of it. They were giving away master sets for tickets.
Oh,
so like someone that I know in our Discord server, they pulled together all their tickets. They just played, it was a 4-person group. They just played 4-person pods of the on-demand standard events or whatever, and they pooled together all their tickets, because I think if you did a 4-person pod and you had all 4 people try to like pool together tickets, you get like 140 tickets per pod. And they pulled together all their tickets and got a Brilliant Stars master set.
Wow.
From the prize tables. The master sets cost $700. I don't know how many they had. They were apparently just short, like 30 minutes short of, I think it was Unbroken Bonds.
Wow.
I don't know that exactly. They were 30 minutes away from the set that they really, really wanted, which I believe was Unbroken Bonds. I could be wrong about that, but that led to chaos when word got out about that. In my opinion, the lines were not long until that like stuff got out about the master sets, and it was insane. The line was awful. It was terrible. I'm sure they were overwhelmed. It was crazy, but no, like overall, I met so many people. There were so many people from the Metapod. that listened, just people that I know that I finally got to meet. And man, like when you go back and like you have a depression of like, man, I wish I was just back over there. I don't want to be working. Like that's how I felt. But I've started a new goal of collecting. I mean, I've kind of already started this, but collecting past decks of prior formats, so then I don't have to borrow someone's deck when I enter a 2010 tournament. Just have events or have, decks from popular formats, and I've got some of them already started. Like I bought all the Worlds decks from 2022, and
Nice.
I have some of the decks from like 2019 Worlds, because I built them myself back when they were still standard and stuff. So it was so cool. I recommend NAIC or really any event. Meet a ton of people. The games were fun. I didn't take it too seriously, and I had a really good time. It was insane. I mean, I won't forget it. It was awesome.
That's
and thanks to everyone who came up and said that they listened to the Metapod.
That's cool.
There were a lot of people. But please, if you ever meet one of us at an event, tell us who you are. Username. Don't just say, "Hey, I listened to the Metapod." If you follow us on Twitter and you interact with us on Twitter, tell us your Twitter handle. Because especially check-in day, I was in the check-in line, and the check-in line was like really big, and it wrapped around like a lot of things. And there were a lot of people that waved hi to me. They were like, "Jake," and they waved, and we were kind of in passing. And I was like, "Hello." And I had no idea who you were. I'm so sorry.
I mean, part of it too. I mean, I have a terrible time with names, so even if I've seen your name,
if you tell me your Twitter handle, I'll know you.
Jake, I will say, Jake is manning the Twitter helm, if you will. But also, if you want to, I don't know if this is something that people did, but if people take photos with either of us or want to take a photo, feel free to tag Metapod, in the photo, whatever. We're both just dudes.
I was having so much fun that I didn't really take pictures. I was just having so much fun. But always up for a picture. I signed some Rowlets, gave away some Rowlets.
Excellent.
There's even one Rowlet, Gnarly over on Twitter, Casey, someone that I've known, through my content, through the Metapod, actually met up with him and his friend over on, in like a pizza place.
Cool. Yeah.
Like we were just talking, and, they were like, "Wait, are you Jake?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I looked at him for a second. I was like, "Are you Casey?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so Casey is officially the only person that has a signed Atrocious Jake Rowlet in blue pen.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Blue pen, not Sharpie, not black pen, blue pen. So there's only one out there. Pop one.
Yeah, when you send it to PSA, be sure to send them this clip so that they know this is a one of one.
Pop one Atrocious Jake Rowlet. But anyways, Sean, Paldea evolved NAIC. This is the official format for the World Championship. So I've talked about my experience casually as a player, but we would be doing a disservice to people preparing for the World Championships or preparing to go back to locals, right?
Yeah.
Or playing online if we didn't talk about the best decks and the best performing decks from the North American International Championships, Sean. So let's get into that. I will say it was like 20%, 25% Gardevoir. It was like 20% almost of Lost Box. So we're going to talk about just a couple of the lists, and then next week we'll talk about more and more of the list because a lot of news came out this week. Probably not going to be a lot next week. But Sean, let's at least show the winning deck because it is a super unique deck. What is the winning deck from the North American International Championships?
Well, as we alluded to earlier, it is from Cyrus, and she played a deck I don't think anybody saw coming. I mean,
I saw a couple people, Super Gassy on Twitter.
Okay.
I know kind of called it, and I know a couple other people did too. So sorry, I forget. I saw a couple people, but this, in my opinion, not a lot of people had this on their radar.
I mean, I did not. That is for sure. So this deck, if you want, I will also say, go watch the finals VOD. Specifically game 2. of the finals VOD because game 1 was a bit of a sad for Ian, and game 3, did you watch any of the VOD of game 3, Jake?
I watched game 3 because we actually in the 2010 tournament didn't start talking and discussing top 8 until after the finals finished because Riley and Cyrus are good friends, and there were a lot of people there that were cheering on Cyrus and community, and Ian as well, and very excited about the matchup, honestly. So we waited until it was over to talk about splitting. But
yeah, the reason I mentioned it because on stream, basically they didn't get any of the match on stream of game 3 because they were focused. They kept the camera on the prizes, and the match was like literally done the second they moved the camera back to the table. The match was already over. They'd already had two turns.
So Sean, Rapid Strike Inteleon and Urshifu VMAX was the deck that won. And just to give you a heads up, the other person, Ian Robb, he was playing Arceus, Duraludon, Umbreon. And so essentially in a synopsis of game 3, started Arceus, went second. Cyrus had an Urshifu and in a Remoraid down. They attached pass to the Urshifu, and then Ian attached to Arceus, said pass, or at least accelerated in energy.
He professors research, but did not find a Pokemon, apparently.
Yeah, just couldn't find a Pokemon, said pass, and then I think the top deck was Octillery, or it was either Octillery or the Rapid Strike energy, evolved into Octillery. Rapid Strike Search, Tower of Waters, attached the Rapid Strike energy to Urshifu, bop, knockout, win, NAIC International Champion. It was insane. It was so cool. But it was really cool to watch and listen in, and which is why we recommend game 2 of this, because you see the special energies in there and no path to the peak. So you would think that Duraludon is a really bad matchup, but Cyrus, she did an excellent job of maneuvering, placing the damage counters, things like that with the double gunner ability. Inteleon VMAX being able to spread those damage counters by discarding water energies through its ability, and then using Radiant Alakazam to manipulate where those damage counters went, and then Medicham V, the Rapid Strike Pokemon, using Yoga Loop to put 2 damage counters on a Pokemon, knock it out, and then take another turn, basically skip their opponent's turn. So I know they Yoga Looped in game 2, right?
Yep, they did.
So it was a huge moment, and this list is awesome. And you can get this list, honestly, for pretty cheap, because I think the Rapid Strike box part, without the Inteleons, was in a build-in battle, or not build-in battle. One of the league decks. And then you could probably get your Inteleons for decently cheap, because I think Inteleon V and VMAX was also, I think it was, you can get your Inteleon Vs pretty easily, I think, maybe. I can't remember.
I mean, it's not an expensive card. Like, it's been out there for a long time. People have pulled tons of it. The whole base of the list is basically almost entirely from battle decks. The most expensive card in the list might be the Radiant Alakazam at this point.
It may be like Inteleon VMAX, Radiant Alakazam, or the Ionos.
Yeah, or maybe the Forest Sealstone. Forest Sealstone.
Actually, Forest Sealstone is probably the most expensive. I did remember buying those a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but the weird thing about this deck, and I guess I didn't ever process how many Rapid Strike cards. I don't know. This is the first time I've ever seen the Octillery show how powerful it can be, because with this Octillery, if you don't know what it does, it has an ability that says once during your turn, you can search your deck for a Rapid Strike card and put it into your hand. Now, Rapid Strike card can be any card that has Rapid Strike on it, and that includes, obviously, Inteleons and Urshifus. Like, all of your Pokemon except for Alakazam and Lumineon are findable via Octillery. That's great. Outside of that, though, you can also go find a supporter like Corinna's Focus, which allows you to draw until you have 6. Situational, but still, it's a supporter for free that you can get on any turn. You can also go get your energy, a special energy and rapid strike energy.
Which is huge because it fulfills Inteleon's attack. And with that extra damage on Inteleon, you get to keep it in your hand and make sure it doesn't get discarded. Or you could use it on the Urshifu to rapid flow.
Yep. Or this is the weirdest ones.
This was the coolest one.
Yeah, you can go get Echoing Horn, which I think nobody really even considers that you could just go grab an item card. But yeah, Echoing Horn is a rapid strike card. So you can go get an Echoing Horn, which is crucial in putting anything back on the bench that, you know, since you're a spread deck, say somebody plays a Luminion, right? Or a Squawkabilly or whatever. Any of these like small Pokemon that can't evolve. You kill it once, you throw it back on the bench with that Echoing Horn, you put 120 damage on it with Urshifu, move some damage counters around with the Inteleon and the Radiant Alakazam. That's 4 whole prizes easy. Right there. And
also you can use it as a disruption. You could use it to fill a bench as the final bench spot and really disrupt your opponent's game plan in there, because we don't have Scoop Up Net in the format anymore and things like that. No Super Scoop Up either. So it's crazy to it's just crazy the versatility of that card and how I don't really remember anybody talking about how you could just use Echoing Horn for Octillery.
Yeah, and the last card is Tower of Water. So you can also go get a stadium that gives your Rapid Strike Pokemon free 2 less retreat costs, which is
free retreat to all your Rapid Strike Pokemon.
Right. It's a really interesting deck. I really like. I don't know if I actually own a 3/3 line of the Inteleon list.
I don't,
but I probably have 1 or 2 somewhere. I definitely like. I'm looking at this list and I'm like, dang. It'll be interesting to see if and how the format shakes up with this deck. Because obviously the Urshifu, it hits for weakness against Arc, which we saw so much Arceus. Like it's kind of insane to me how powerful and like how good that card is going to be until the day that it rotates. Like I don't think there's any argument ever that it's going to be out power creeped, because accelerating 3 energy, being able to attack with any color, getting 2 cards out of your deck on your second turn with the ability of the V-Star, you know, so that's going to continue to be powerful. And the only downside of the Urshifu is that I believe it is weak to Psychic. So, you know, you get a lot of Gardevoir out here doing some shenanigans, but again, you can spread lots of damage. You can knock out those Ralts and Curlias and whatever pretty easily with all the damage spread too. So I don't know what beats this deck. Probably a lot of things, but like
it was an insanely good call, I feel like, for this event to play this. I mean, you do so well against so many different decks that are so meta, and none of them probably prepare for you. No. I mean, even Manaphy, like if you think of like Lost Box, right? I play a Manaphy. Well, you just double Gunner and you just knock out the Manaphy. Then you can use Gmax Rapid Flow, or you could just keep using double Gunner. Like,
yeah,
there's so much flexibility in this deck and there are so many options. This was, in my opinion, one of the coolest decks, if not the coolest, to come out of this event, and I'm so happy that it was played.
Yeah, it was a very, very cool deck. So big congrats to Cyrus on taking down the biggest Pokemon tournament ever. That's amazing. Outside of that, Jake, I mean, I will say a lot of the field was, I think, pretty similar to what we expected. Obviously, Iono made a big showing, being legal now. And I think Iono was a big reason for Gardevoir's reintroduction to the top of the meta field, which we not really a surprise, but
I think we expected. I think the biggest thing that was a surprise in the event is how Lugia was taken off of people's radar. Like there were so many people that decided that Gardevoir and Lost Box decks were the play, that Lugia had just a massive decrease than what I think a lot of people expected. So that is, in my opinion, the most interesting thing. And who knows, maybe with the Rapid Strike Inteleon and Urshifu, maybe Lugia starts to tread back up
It might.
of
Yeah.
the deck to play, just being able to hit those Pokemon and trade pretty decently, I feel like. I mean, I haven't played the matchup, but theoretically, I feel like Lugia could do a pretty decent job.
You know, the other deck that I think took a pretty big hit, people were surprised about the casters was Mew. Mew VMAX. It's not like the deck got any worse. The deck is just the deck, and it has been for a year and a half, but it didn't have as strong of a showing. And I wonder if, again, it came down to like, look, if Lost Box is going to see tons of play, which it did, then you're going to see a lot of Drapion. And between seeing
a lot of random decks playing Drapion too.
Yeah, and between seeing a lot of Drapion and the prevalence of Arceus Duraludon in particular, with the Umbreon and all that, and you just sort of sat there and you're like, man, like Duraludon walls me out from special energy. Umbreon knocks me out pretty easily. Like, this is a bad matchup. So, you know, I wonder if Mew has finally sort of, in this moment at least, seen its final like big moment, but
does it get better though with Rapid Strike Urshifu and Inteleon? Because
it's
one, this list isn't playing Drapion, but yes, the weakness like you mentioned, but also the Fusion Strike energies don't get hit with Double Gunner.
Do they not?
No, because they prevent like the abilities and stuff, because the Fusion Strike energy blocks Spiritomb.
That's interesting.
Spiritomb's ability.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Mew becomes more of an upward trend after this if Rapid Strike box gets more popular. But Mew is only 2 of the top 50 spots according to PokeStats.live.
Yeah. Yeah. The same thing with Mew had as many top spots as basically Chien-Pao did, which I will say also, like, a quick honorable mention here. Both Jared, a friend of mine, and then Owen Rhodes got 12th with Chien-Pao. And the only reason I want to bring this up is because I do think that Chien-Pao was a deck that I thought was going to do a lot better when it came out. I think it has the struggle of it's still a stage 2 deck that, like, even though you play 4 Irida, which can get you Rare Candy and Baxcalibur all on the same turn, so you could just
battle VIP pass too.
Right. Like, Irida's an amazing card for this deck. That said, I think Spiritomb really messes this deck up, right? Because it turns off your engine for water, it turns off Illuminion, it turns off Radiant Greninja. I think Path to the Peak also can be really annoying for this deck to deal with. All that said, I think it actually is in a good place if more Rapid Strike Urshifu decks get played, because it can hit those numbers, right? Rapid Strike Urshifu is going to have a really hard time. Like, they might be able to knock out Baxcalibur, which is important, but if you can get a couple of those set up, then I do think you're going to be able to hit high numbers on at least 2 turns to take all 6 prizes.
Yeah, I mean, your one-shot potential with Chien-Pao is huge.
Yeah.
So you just have to find a way to protect, especially your Baxcalibur, and your small little Pokemon in there, which is harder than it sounds.
Yeah, it is hard. It is difficult.
But there is that potential of it being there. And so very, very cool. I mean, we'll touch on a lot of different other decks next week. There was a Darkrai deck that placed 33rd in the event from the legendary Ross Cawthon. There was also, Sean, first of all, there was a top 64 United Wings list that stole the show in one of the rounds on stream. But also, there was an Alolan Raticate Clodsire that I believe was really close to making top 16.
Okay. Yeah, this is, I think next week we should do all the weird NAIC decks.
I do think next week we should talk more about these decks because, at this point, we're preparing now for the World Championships. It's going to be the same format. There's a lot of stuff that you can take from this event to utilize in there. And we'll talk a little bit more about the meta share. We'll talk about a little bit more what I think, honestly, I think Arceus Giratina was also like a super good play for this event, looking at it at a matchup spread wise. And so we'll talk more about that next week. But I will say, just Sean, do you want to close out with the one piece of news I wanted to add at the end with the schedule?
Oh, yes.
Or do you want to say that for Nick? Okay.
No, we'll say that now, because I think as early as people can make travel plans, the better.
That's true.
Yeah, Pokemon.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just, yeah. So I'm looking at the clock right now. We got to go to work. But Pokemon at the end of NAIC made an announcement of the start of the 2024 season. So they announced all of the major events from September through October. So if you do not know, at this point, you cannot get any more CP for Worlds. If you didn't qualify for Worlds at NAIC or any cups or anything on Sunday, you cannot qualify as a competitor for the World Championships. So anything from this moment on that you get goes towards the 2024 World Championships. So if you have any challenges that are starting in July, cups or challenges, those will count towards the 2024 championships. And so Pokemon announced their schedule. We're just going to run through these real quick for 2024. It is going to be Pittsburgh on September 8th through 10th in North America. Barcelona over in Europe on September 16th and the 17th. Curitiba, I think it's in Brazil, Sean, if memory serves correctly. That is going to be September 23rd through the 24th. So like 3 straight weeks of Pokemon. And then Peoria regionals, going back to Peoria. I know a lot of people have some opinions about that. That is going to be October 6th through the 8th. Sacramento in North America, October 13th through the 15th. Lille. I was going to say,
France.
we've talked about that on we've had comments about it before. Over in Europe, October 22nd and the 23rd, and then Toronto to end October on the 27th and 29th of October in Canada. So if you're looking at your schedules, looking ahead, trying to make travel plans, make sure start looking at that, check that out. But I don't know if I'll be able to go to any of these events, just because, again, you know, this academic year is very hard for me as someone who works in college athletics. The weekends are always busy, but we'll let you know if we'll be at any of them. But Sean, anything else you got to add?
Nothing else. It was a very exciting weekend. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. I don't know how many times I had to say that at NAIC for people, but anyways, thanks for listening. We will see you next week.